Oh, I got a hole in my socks. How's everybody doing today? My name is Akram and this is episode 8. And in episode 8, this is the final part for the Awwwards Rebuilt Season 2. I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. This is the final part of episode 8. I don't know how to start these videos. I gotta get used to the camera. I'm not good with the camera. Anyway, starting over. Episode 8, final episode for the Awwwards Rebuilt Season 2. And what we're covering in this one is building the footer, as well as we're creating our own custom hook, which allows us to get the element position depending on where it is on our website. So we have the hamburger menu where when we hover on it, we want the cursor to lock. And to do that, we're going to use that custom hook that we're going to build to capture where that element exists and then update the styles for the cursor. I'm really excited to finish and conclude this project. I don't like working on long projects just because I get a little bored and I have a really bad habit of starting things and never finishing them, like you've noticed in the past. I won't mention them, but some people always just come back to me and tell me, hey, you need to finish a certain project. Other than that, I don't really have anything else. I hope everybody's staying safe. I'm a little hyper. I had pre-workout and I need to work out, so I'm trying to wrap up this video so that we can get it uploaded tonight. Yeah, let's get into the preview and then we can start coding out the project. And in the next series, or the next project we work on, I didn't mention it in the episode, but it's going to be a design project. And then for coding, we're going to start using 3.js, which 3.js allows for 3D stuff. Other than that, have a wonderful day, guys. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. Take care.
So we're first going to create the custom hook to allow us to access an element's position, and then we're going to build the footer for the homepage and the navigation menu. So let's go ahead and jump into the context folder and create a new file, and we'll call this use element position. And inside use element position, we're first going to import useState and useEffect from React. And then we're going to export the hook that we're going to build. So we'll write export default function. And then we'll say use element position, and this will be the hook that we are exporting. So inside the hook, we'll have a function that will retrieve the element. And specifically, we're going to access the X and the Y positions. So we're going to return those two. X will be X and Y will be set to Y. And then we're going to build the state. So we'll say const element position and set element position will equal to useState, and we'll pass in get element, which is going to return the X and the Y of the position. Now with this hook, we are going to pass in an argument, which is going to be our ref for whichever element we're targeting. So we'll pass in L for now as an element. Next, we need the useEffect hook, and we can get rid of this cleanup and the effect as well as the dependency. So in the useEffect, we'll have a function in here, and we'll say function handle position. And inside handle position, we'll create a variable called element, and element's going to be l.current. So L is the reference we'll pass in when we use this hook, and current will allow us to target the reference, specifically its DOM node. So we also need to have an X, and X is going to be element.getBounding client rect dot left plus document dot document element dot scroll left plus element dot offset width divided by 2. Let's save this. So ideally here, the X that we're trying to grab is wherever the element is positioned. We want to capture that div and then capture it however far it is to the left of the screen. So it's going to return the left position. We also want to do the exact same thing that we did here, but for the Y. So we'll say let Y equal the following, and we can copy and paste what we did for the left. And the things we're changing is setting left to top, and then the scroll left over here to scroll top. And finally, the offset width will be changed to the offset height. Let's save this. And then finally, we want to set the element position state. So we'll set element position state. We'll run the get element function that we defined up here. And for the two parameters that we're passing in, we're going to pass in the X and the Y variables we created here. So we'll say X and Y. And then we can finally run or invoke this handle position function at the bottom of the use effect like so. For the dependencies, we are using the L dependency, which is going to be this parameter up here, which again is the ref of the element that we're going to pass in to grab the position of the X and the Y. Finally, we're going to return element position. All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and save this. So now that we've built this use element position hook, we'll then want to go ahead and call it in the header.js. So let's jump into header.js. Let's go ahead and find components, and I believe it is called header.js. So we'll import the custom hook here. We'll say import use element position, and we're importing this from /hooks / use element position. So let's scroll down a bit and we can define what use element position is going to be. So we'll say const position is assigned to the use element position, and then remember we need to pass in the item here, or the ref. So since we're trying to target this hamburger menu, we're going to create a ref for the hamburger, and we need to import use ref from the top. So let's go ahead and get use ref here. And then we need to define what hamburger is. So we'll say const hamburger is equal to use ref, and we'll pass in null initially. However, when the component mounts in the use effect, it will pick up the ref. So let's go ahead and look for the menu right here. So this menu on click will have a ref of the hamburger. So let's go ahead and pass ref hamburger and save this. Now when hovering on this menu item, we want to run the use element position hook so that we can capture where this element is living, and then we'll update the cursor position, the left and the top, to match exactly where that hamburger menu exists. So to do that, what we're going to do is let's jump into the layout.js here, and let's create state specific to where the cursor should be fixed at, dependent on the position of the hamburger menu. So we'll create its own state. We'll call const hamburger position, and we'll say set hamburger position, and we'll say use state, and the X and Y by default are going to be set to 0. So we'll do X is 0 and Y is 0. And we can pass the hamburger position and the set hamburger position down to the header. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go down to header and we'll pass the hamburger position state as well as the set hamburger position state. Okay, perfect. So what we want to do next is in our header.js, let's bring in those two. So we'll bring in set hamburger and the hamburger state. So we'll say hamburger position and set hamburger position to bring those in, and now we can access these two in header.js. Let's take a look at the project real quick. And so when we scroll on or hover on top of this hamburger menu, you can see that it turns to a default cursor. So let's make it to where it will have that hovered effect, but we want it to lock. So to do that, what we could do is we'll say on mouse enter. We'll create a function called menu hover and on mouse leave. We can provide that on cursor function that we've been reusing, on and off for the different elements. We'll need to create what menu hover represents. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll say const menu hover, make it into an anonymous function, and we'll say on cursor And for this, we'll pass in locked, which we are building so that I could lock the cursor onto the menu. And then we also need to set the state. So we'll set hamburger position. We'll set X to position dot X, and we'll set Y to position dot Y. Now I'm bringing this position dot X and position dot Y from this position, which is the use element position hook that we are getting by passing in from the hamburger. So let's go ahead and save this real quick. Now I did mention before that we did need to add some values to the position Y, and that is due to the fact that we're using framer motion. So when this header loads, we are actually at a position of -72 pixels as our initial here. So you'll see header nav is -72, which means that it's not going to pick up the fact that we are animating in our animations. So we need to make up for that by adding 72 to the plus Y, or else the position Y will be 0. So let's go ahead and add 72. If we didn't have animations, then it would pick up the fact that the position Y is 72 pixels. So let's save this, and when it comes time to show off the pretty much the locked icon or the cursor, I will get rid of this and I'll show you. But to move on and to get this working now, we'll want to jump into layout.js, and the idea here is that this locked is going to be added to the cursor, meaning that we are going to want to go into the cursor styles and add a class name for locked. So let's open that up real quick. Styles, global styles, scroll down to cursor. We've got pointer, hovered, and nav open. We'll want to create one for locked. But before we do, we need to figure out how we can target the states X and Y of that position. So the way to do that, we could use variables like within Sass, but since we're using styled components, we are going to need to use that theme provider. Let's go to the layout.js real quick. And in layout.js, we'll need to pass the X and the Y in the dark theme and in the light theme, just so that we can access it through props. So I'll add it to both. We'll say left is equal to the following. So I'll add backticks, and we'll say hamburger position dot X, and we'll say pixels, and we'll want to copy and paste this again for the top. So I'll switch left to top and X to Y. And then I could copy and paste this inside the dark theme as well. So now we can access the state. Why is this giving me an error here? Okay, that's weird, it's gone. So now I can access this hamburger position state in CSS or in the styles, which is the styled components. Now this allows us to transition into the global styles and build that locked. So we'll say and.locked. And when the cursor is locked, it's going to be very similar to the hovered. So I'll copy everything in hovered and paste it in. We have a background of transparent. We have a height and the width of 56 and a border of 4 pixels. The only thing different is the top and the left. So the top is going to have the props, which is going to be props.theme.top. And we'll set that to important. It's going to be the exact same thing for our left. So left is going to be props.theme.left. Let's save that. And now lastly, what we need to do is jump into our global context. And you can see that the cursor styles here only has pointer and hovered. We need to add an additional cursor style, which is locked. So let's add locked like so. And now I believe that that's gonna do it. There was a lot of steps for this. I know it's a little annoying, but the effect is pretty cool. So let's go back in our project now. And as you can see, when we're scrolling and we scroll on different items, we do have the different cursors happening, such as the turning to the white and the black. But now when we scroll or hover on the hamburger menu, it should lock in place. So it does, it locks in place, and we know as a user that we can now click that item, which is pretty neat. I do like it a lot. And now we're just locking back on. Every time we get close to it or in its proximity, it updates the left and the Y of the style and it locks onto it, and then we could just hover off. Perfect. So you could reuse this on any other element. The only thing that you need to change is, if we jump into the header, you'll need to create a new ref for that element, and then you have the option to create new state, or you have the option to replace the current hamburger state, and that will then update the cursor. In the final version, in the master repo, I do have it to where when we hover on the footer icons, it does update the same state, and then it updates the cursor to lock onto those icons that are in the footer. I'm not going to do that because it's really time consuming. And if you followed along for that hamburger menu, you could honestly just replicate it and do it for the hamburger icons. Right now, let's go ahead and build that footer and then add the same or similar footer to the hamburger menu. And that should do it for the rest of the project. So let's carry on. Let's go back in our project and we can close out of everything that is opened. And let's look for the components folder and we'll create a new file and call it footer.js. We're going to do the same thing we always do with the RAFCE, which will create a functional component and we'll call it footer. At the very top, knowing what I need already, I'll go ahead and build the JSX and then import the styled components that we need. We'll replace the current divs to say footer nav. Inside footer nav, we have a container, and inside the container, we have a flex. And I wonder why I did an auto import. It seems like it auto imports sometimes, and for other times it just doesn't. So we have flex, and now inside flex, we've got a new component called footer content. Now footer content is going to receive a p tag with a phone number. So we'll say 902.315.1234. And the second p tag is going to be an email. Can we get another p tag? There we go. So we'll say info@furrow.studio. Now we also have another footer content and we'll paste it like so. Except for this one, they're going to add the address, which is 15 cam AT unit B. Now you can access this stuff on their website. I'm not trying to just give out their information. I don't know if I can even get in trouble for that, but I am changing it slightly. But anyway, then it's university, PE, C320E2. Clearly not an American address. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, after the double footer content, we are going to have that footer social, which will have the social media links. We'll call this social. Inside footer social, we've got an A tag because we can't use links because links are always relative to the website. A tags will take you outside the website. Inside this A tag, we are going to have the Instagram icon and we'll use a self-closing tag. And then we'll copy and paste these 2 more times and then switch it to Facebook icon and the Vimeo icon. Okay, that's going to do it for the JSX. If we save it and check out the site, it's going to throw errors because not everything is imported. So let's import what we have built already. Let's separate these. So we'll say these are comma styled components. And then we have icons, which icons should already exist had you cloned the project in the social icons. So we can import Instagram, Facebook, and Vimeo. Let's do that. We could say import and then list out the following social medias: Instagram, Facebook, and Vimeo. And these are coming from the assets folder, specifically SVGs. Now we're still going to get errors because we haven't built out the footer components. So let me import these and then we'll build them out. So we can say import. What do we have? We got footer content, we have footer social, and the parent, which is footer nav. Okay, now these are all going to be imported from the styles folder, and we'll create a new style sheet for the footer styles. Let's save this, jump into the styles, new file, and we'll call this footer styles.js. I'll open up the global styles and I'll scroll to the top. And actually, let's do the header styles. And I'll copy the styled import in the motion from framework motion, just because I don't feel like writing that. So I will say export const footer nav set to styled.div with the backticks. And let's do footer nav, footer content, and the footer social. Let's save all this, and if we preview now and refresh, actually we're not going to show anything just because we haven't added the footer into layout.js. Have we? We have not. Underneath the main for the children, which is the pages, we are going to add footer. Awesome. And with footer, like everything else, we're probably going to need this on cursor, just because we have the social media links, which we need to indicate that we can click on them. Did we import footer at the top? We did not. So let's make sure we import the footer component. This is coming from the footer. Save it, preview. Styles not defined, motions not defined. This is all inside the footer styles.js. Footer styles.js. Oh, style. I don't know what style is. Don't forget to add the D, which is styled, not style. What else is wrong? Can't resolve assets SVG. What is wrong here? Footer. Oh, social icons. Okay. / social icons JS. You can add the JS, but it doesn't matter because you don't need it. Perfect. So here we go. Now they're loading in. We got Facebook, Instagram, Facebook, Vimeo. And then I think we do have the text, but since we are using the dark theme, it's not going to show. Here we go. So we have the addresses showing perfectly. Let's go back in our project, work on the styles, and then we could add the animations. Footer styles, here we go. So we're going to have a height set to 300 pixels, a margin top of 296. And if you remember from the last episode, I specifically told you guys that when we build the footer, we're adding a margin top. So this means if we jump into the home styles, scroll all the way down to this about here, or the home about section, we'll get rid of this margin bottom. Save that. And we still have that margin because we're using the margin top instead of the bottom for the footer. So you can always get rid of this styled component and make it a regular motion div in JSX. Close out of the home styles and let's continue working here. We can open up the footer content. The color is going to be set to the props. So props.theme.red. Our font size, we are working with 22 pixels. And actually it's probably going to be like 1.8 rem if I'm doing my calculations correctly. The font weight is going to be set to 600. Our line height is going to be set to 8 pixels. Or you could do 0.5 rem. Let's stick with rems. What are we doing? 0.5 rem. Our flex is going to be set to 1. And now something that I want to mention is that we have two footer contexts, but I want one wider than the other. And the way I'll make it wider is through this flex use. I will say flex 2 for the one that I want wider. So let's build a prop. So we can say props, and I'll call this wider. So props.wider. And of course we have to use that CSS property that they provide in the styled components. And then I'll write my CSS within this CSS backticks saying flex2. So here we're just building a simple prop of wider that we can pass in. Don't forget to import CSS. Now we need to pass this wider prop to the footer content that we want to be wider. This means, which one? Footer content, the second one. I want this one to be wider. Perfect. So this means that the second one is going to be wider here. If you could hear bells and people screaming outside, it's because it is 8:01, 8 o'clock. So people usually get on their balconies and scream, not scream, but celebrate essential workers, I believe. I should probably know. Anyway, so I also want to add a prop on the flex. We have already defined this prop, but we'll say space between. Like so. Back in our footer styles, we can carry on to the footer social. Let's make this a display of flex, a position set to relative. We'll add A tags, not S tags. We'll add A tags, position of relative. We'll say display set to block. We'll give it a width of 24 pixels, a height of 24 pixels, a padding, not margin, of 8 pixels for the top, left, right, and bottom. And then inside the A tag, we did have SVGs, which are going to have a width of 100% and a height of 100% as well. So let's save this, and what's going on? We have a backtick here. We need a semicolon there. And this is what happens when I write too fast. Actually, we do need the backtick. What am I talking about? Now, if we preview our project, you will notice that this second element, the footer content, is wider. And we wanted it like that. So when we hover on these icons, they aren't doing the on cursor hover effect thing, and that's because we just didn't tell it to. So we'll need to bring in on cursor, and people are getting even louder outside. Wow, they are screaming. Okay, let's just carry on. Well, this is fine. So on mouse enter for all of them. We're going to say on cursor, and we'll need to pass in, or we'll need to do an anonymous function first, actually. So the on cursor, they're all going to have hovered. And then for on mouse leave, we're just going to pass that on cursor function. So let's save this and preview now. So we're getting the href requires a valid. Okay. What can we say for these hrefs? We'll just take them back to the home screen because I don't know their links or the social links. So on mouse leave is not defined. Oh, why are we? Come on, man. We gotta focus. It's going to be on cursor and not on mouse leave. So now when we hover, we then can click. So you can definitely leave it like this if you want, or you can add the locked and then import that state and then make this section locked. I'm not going to do it because I already said, why is this part not showing? Let's refresh. There we go. I'm not going to do that part because I already said that, I already did it up here and it's just really time consuming to do it again. The last part we're doing is adding a footer for our navigation menu. All right, so let's do that. Let's go back in our project and we can switch over to, where is it at? Navigation.js, which is going to be in, wow, I am just all over the place today. Components, and then Navigation.js. We'll scroll all the way to the bottom where the nav list ends, and we'll create a nav footer. And nav footer is already created, but it's empty. So if you have one already created, we could leave it like how it was. So inside nav footer, we have flex, and flex is going to receive a space between attribute. And now if you see that why I wanted to wait until we built the footer is because we're using a lot of the components that we've already defined in the footer. So we've got footer content here, and inside footer content, we'll have a p tag, which is just going to be the email. So info@furrow.studio. Now we have another footer content, which is going to have that wider attribute, which we already built. And for the p tag in here is going to be their mobile telephone number, 902-315-1234. And then now we also have social links, which, I can just copy and paste, right? Footer.js, footer social, copy footer social, and paste it after the footer content wider. And that's it. We just have to import the components as well as the social icons. Scroll to the top, and we currently have these imported, so I can copy and paste. Let's scroll to the top here. Let's copy and paste these icons as well as the styles for the footer styles. Let's go ahead and paste that here. Let us save this and preview now. Let's refresh. Let's open up the navigation, and it's not showing. I think that is because we haven't defined what nav footer is. So let's do that actually. Are we importing nav footer? We are. So if we jump into navigation styles and look for nav footer, we don't have any styles here. Now nav footer is going to be position of absolute. The bottom is going to be 0. Left is going to be set to 0. Our width is going to be 100%. Our padding is going to be 56 pixels and 0. The p tags are going to have the color props of the theme background. So let me copy props theme background, and we'll set the color of the p tags to that. Our SVGs are going to be the following. So SVG, and then inside SVG we have the path. Our SVGs, specifically the paths, we're going to change the fills. So let's make fill equal the following, and it's going to be the theme background as well, similar to the text. Let's save that and preview now. Now if we look at our project, you can see that we now have the footer on the bottom. And if we change the theme color, it will change to black. Okay, perfect. If we hover on them, they do hover. However, they turn red, and we don't necessarily want it to turn red. We want to leave that nav open color on. So let's take a look at why that's happening. We are passing that pointer style. So if we go to the global styles, go down to the cursor, we have the following. So nav open, background doesn't change because it's not important. Let's see if this does that. Does the trick. There's a lot of overriding styles here. We do not want that. So, okay. So it works here. And what do I have in navigation for the links? Is it pointer or hovered? Oh, it's not hovered, it's pointer. Okay, that's why. So I have hovered for the navigation for the SVGs because that's what I have on the footer, which is fine on the footer because we're not changing. But let's change hovered here to pointer. This will allow us to update the color to the theme color. So if we hover here, perfect. So now it works just like we want it to. Awesome. I think that's gonna wrap it up here. I don't think we're really missing anything else. If we compare this site to the actual site, there are a few things missing, but those things aren't necessarily anything that we as developers know or are curious about, right? So we might be missing, like if we hover on the locked item, the project that is completed or the one that's live has like projects that's come up here where we can click projects, which again, that's very, very easy to add. I think we get the general gist here. When I remake these, I am not going to remake them 110% or 100% perfectly. It's going to be a slight replica just so that we can learn how these websites work. We don't want to just copy everything and say we did it, right? We didn't do anything here. The talent at Forest Studio built it, and we're kind of just seeing how we can kind of replicate it so that we could learn. It's all about a learning process here. Other than that, if I have missed anything, let me know in the comments down below. I could follow up with that. You can always clone the master and grab the latest. One thing that I have received comments on is the fact that, what was it? When we run Gatsby build, we do get errors on the global context. I haven't taken a look at that, but I will look at that and I'll update the master branch. I hope you guys enjoyed season 2 of the Awwwards Rebuilt. I sure did. I'm really excited for the future, and we've got much more exciting projects coming up. I won't say what they are just yet, but trust me, you'll be really excited when you see them. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like. Have a wonderful day, guys.